Birthdays were supposed to be special. They were a day to feel loved, appreciated, and celebrated. But for me, birthdays were just another reminder that I was invisible in my own family. I had grown used to the feeling. Every year, I watched as my siblings were showered with gifts and attention. My older brother, Ryan, always got the latest gadgets or expensive watches. My younger sister, Emily, had entire birthday parties dedicated to her, complete with lavish decorations and designer gifts. And me? Well, I got whatever my family could spare, if they even remembered at all. This year was no different. The morning of my 25th birthday, I woke up with a small glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they'd put some thought into it this time. I walked into the kitchen to find my parents and siblings having breakfast. Nobody even glanced up at me. "Morning," I greeted, trying to sound casual. "Morning," my mother said, flipping through a magazine. "Hey," my dad grunted without looking up from his phone. Ryan and Emily didn't even acknowledge me. I felt my stomach sink, but I kept quiet. I had learned long ago that expressing disappointment only led to accusations of being ungrateful. It wasn't until lunchtime that someone finally remembered. "Oh right," my dad said, setting his fork down. "It's your birthday today, isn't it?" My mom's eyes widened slightly. "Oh yeah. Happy birthday, sweetie." Ryan and Emily gave half-hearted nods, mumbling their greetings. I forced a smile. "Thanks." My dad reached into his wallet and pulled out an envelope, sliding it across the table toward me. "Here. A little something for you." Excitement sparked inside me. Maybe they had actually put some thought into it this year. I picked up the envelope and opened it, only to feel my heart drop. Inside was a $20 coupon for a fast food restaurant. That was it. No cake. No presents. No heartfelt card. Just a coupon, one that probably came free with a meal purchase. My throat tightened as I glanced around the table, but nobody seemed to think anything was wrong. My family had just gone back to eating as if nothing had happened. I forced myself to swallow the lump in my throat and smiled. "Thanks. That's all you're getting," Ryan said, smirking. "Spend it wisely." The others chuckled. I gripped the coupon tightly, nodding as I excused myself from the table. I sat alone in my tiny bedroom, staring at the coupon. My fingers curled around it, crumpling the paper slightly. Was this really all I was worth to them? A cheap afterthought. For years, I had accepted being the least important person in my own family. I had tried so hard to prove myself to make them proud. I had worked tirelessly at my job, tried to pursue my passions, and had always been there for them when they needed me. But none of it mattered. I would always be the overlooked one. That realization hit me like a punch to the gut. I wasn't angry, at least not at first. I was hurt, deeply hurt. But as I sat there, staring at that ridiculous coupon, something inside me shifted. I was done. Done trying to seek their approval. Done waiting for them to acknowledge my worth. If they couldn't see it, then I would show the world instead. For years, I had dabbled in video editing as a hobby. It had always fascinated me, the way a simple clip could be transformed into something engaging, emotional, or hilarious. But I had never pursued it seriously. My family always told me it was a waste of time, that I should focus on getting a real job. So I did. I worked at a dull office job that paid the bills but killed my spirit a little more each day. But that night I made a decision. I opened my laptop, dusted off my old editing software, and started creating. First it was just for fun, simple videos that made me laugh. Then I began studying what made videos go viral. I analyzed trends, learned how to hook an audience, and slowly started posting my own content online. It was slow at first. My videos barely got any views. But I didn't stop. I experimented, improved, and kept pushing forward. Then one day it happened. One of my videos went viral. It was a comedy skit, something I had thrown together in an hour. But for some reason people loved it. The views skyrocketed, and soon my follower count exploded. Before I knew it, I had an audience. People were actually enjoying my content. And for the first time in my life I felt seen. As my channel grew, so did my confidence. Brands started reaching out for collaborations, and before I knew it, I was making more money in a month than my office job paid in a year. Finally quit. My family barely noticed at first. They still thought I was wasting my time, that my success was just a fluke. But I kept going. I upgraded my equipment, improved my content, and turned my passion into a full-fledged career. And then came the moment I had been waiting for. Months later, I pulled up to my parents' house in a brand new luxury car. I had moved out, gotten my own place, and built a life for myself, one they never thought I could have. Ryan was the first to notice. "Whose car is that?" "Mine," I said, tossing my keys in the air. They all stared at me, stunned. My dad cleared his throat. "Wait, how could you afford this?" Smiled. "Oh, just that waste of time thing you all laughed at." Silence. I reached into my pocket and pulled out something, sliding it across the table. It was the same $20 coupon they had given me on my birthday. "You might need this more than me now." Their faces burned with embarrassment. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the overlooked one. I was the one they couldn't ignore anymore. Success was intoxicating. For the first time in my life, I wasn't invisible. My audience adored me. My inbox was flooded with messages from fans who loved my content. My bank account had more money than I had ever imagined making. And yet, despite everything, I still felt a lingering emptiness inside. My family had barely reached out after my visit. No congratulatory texts, no calls. It was as if they didn't want to acknowledge what I had achieved. But that didn't matter anymore, right? I had everything I had ever dreamed of. Or so I thought. One evening, as I scrolled through my messages, I saw something unexpected. An invitation to a family gathering. "Mom and Dad are hosting a dinner this weekend." The text from my sister, Emily, read, "You should come." I stared at the screen, my fingers hesitating to type a response. In the past, I would have jumped at the chance to be included, desperate for their approval. But now, I wasn't sure if I even wanted to go. Still, a part of me was curious. Had they finally come around? Did they actually want to see me, or was there another reason? I decided to go. The last time I stepped foot in my family's house, I had been nothing more than an afterthought. This time was different. The moment I walked in, I noticed how everyone's eyes flickered toward me. My mom greeted me with a tight smile. My dad, who had never cared much about my career, patted me on the back. Even Ryan, my ever-smug brother, seemed oddly polite. "So, you're really doing well, huh?" he said as we sat down for dinner. "Yeah," I replied casually, taking a sip of my drink. "Things are going great." Mom and Dad exchanged glances. "That's good," Mom said. "Really good. We're happy for you." I raised an eyebrow. Their words sounded hollow, as if they were forcing themselves to say it. That's when I realized why they had invited me. As dinner continued, the conversation took a sudden shift. "You know," Dad started, his voice a little too casual, "your sister's been struggling with her finances lately." Emily nodded dramatically. "Things have been so hard. My business isn't doing well, and I might have to sell my car." Ryan chimed in. "And I've been thinking of starting a YouTube channel myself. Since you've already made it big, maybe you could, help us out." And there it was. They didn't invite me because they were proud. They invited me because they wanted something. I let out a small laugh, shaking my head. "So that's why I'm here. Not because you're happy for me, but because you need my money." Gasped. "How could you say that? We're family." "Were we family when you gave me a $20 coupon for my birthday?" I shot back, my voice calm but firm. Silence fell over the table. 4 years, I had been the forgotten one, the disappointment. But now I saw the truth. My family never looked down on me because I was a failure. They did it because they never expected me to succeed. And now that I had, they didn't know how to handle it. I stood up, pushing my chair back. "I spent my whole life trying to prove my worth to this family. But I don't need to anymore. You only care about me now because I have something you want." Dad opened his mouth to argue, But I didn't give him the chance. I'm done chasing your approval. If you ever want to be in my life, it'll be on my terms. And with that I walked out, this time with my head held high. I wasn't the forgotten one anymore. I was the one they couldn't ignore. As I drove home from my parents' house, a mix of emotions swirled inside me. Anger, disappointment, and a strange sense of freedom. For years, I had bent over backward for their approval. I had tolerated being overlooked, ignored, and belittled. But now, I had finally taken control. Still, a small part of me wondered, would they ever reach out again? Would they ever treat me like real family, instead of just a resource to exploit? I wasn't sure. And maybe I didn't care anymore. With my focus completely on my work, I threw myself into my content. I started collaborating with bigger creators, launching new projects, and expanding my brand beyond just YouTube shorts. Soon, opportunities one had only dreamed of started rolling in. A brand deal with a major company. An invitation to a celebrity event. Merchandise ideas turning into real products. Everything was happening so fast, but I embraced it. I was no longer just some guy making videos in his bedroom. I was a brand, a business, a success story. And then came the moment that changed everything. A major online magazine reached out, wanting to do a feature on my rise to success. It was an opportunity one couldn't pass up. During the interview, the host asked, "Your story is inspiring. But I have to ask, how did your family react to your success?" Pause. This was my chance to be honest, to tell the world how they had treated me, how they only cared once I became successful. So I told the truth. I talked about the years of neglect, the $20 coupon birthday, and the moment I realized my worth had nothing to do with their approval. The interview went viral. People resonated with my story. Comments flooded in, with thousands of people saying they had experienced something similar. It wasn't just my story anymore. It was a story of every person who had been underestimated. And then, my family saw it. It didn't take long for my phone to blow up with messages. First my sister. "Emily, wow. Can't believe you'd air our family drama for clout." That was low. Then my brother. "Ryan. Nice way to make us look like villains. You really think you're better than us now, huh?" And finally my mom. She actually called. First she was quiet. Then she sighed. "You really hurt us, you know that?" I let out a small laugh. "You mean like how you hurt me for years?" "That's not fair," she said. "We always cared about you." I leaned back in my chair. "No, Mum. You cared about me when you needed me. That's different." She was silent for a moment. Then, in a voice laced with forced concern, she asked, "So, are you still coming to the holidays this year?" I almost laughed. They really thought I'd come running back after everything. "Not this year," I said. "Or maybe ever." Then I ended the call. That moment was the final straw. I realized something important. Family isn't just blood. It's who stands by you, supports you, and celebrates your success without expecting a payout. So I built my own. I surrounded myself with friends who truly cared, fellow creators who inspired me, and an audience that appreciated me for who I was. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the forgotten one, the underdog, or the outcast. I was finally home. Not in a house, but in a life I had built with my own two hands. And I had never felt more alive. Cutting off my family should have felt like a loss, but instead, it felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. For the first time I was free. Free from their judgment, their neglect, and their attempts to use me. But that didn't mean the scars they left behind disappeared overnight. Some nights I still found myself staring at my phone, half expecting a message from my mom saying she missed me, or a text from Ryan acknowledging that maybe, just maybe, I had been right. But those messages never came. And deep down I knew they never would. So instead of waiting for closure, I decided to create my own. I used the pain of my past as fuel. Every video I made, every project I launched, and every deal I signed was proof that I didn't need their approval to be successful, happy, or worthy. But as my platform grew, so did the challenges. People started digging into my past. Some family members I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly wanted to reconnect, not out of love, but because they saw my success as something they could benefit from. Distant cousins started reaching out. "Hey, remember me? We should totally catch up." Old classmates who never gave me the time of day suddenly slid into my DMs. "Dude, I always knew you'd make it. Let's hang out." It was funny how success changed people's perception of you. But what I wasn't expecting was a betrayal from someone I actually trusted. One of my closest friends, James, had been by my side since the beginning. He had supported me when no one else did. I thought he was different, until I found out he was selling stories about me to the media. A news article popped up online with details about my struggles growing up, my fallout with my family, and even private conversations I had shared with James in confidence. At first, I thought it was a coincidence, until I saw a leaked screenshot of him messaging a reporter. He had sold me out. For money. I confronted him immediately. "Why would you do this?" I demanded, my voice shaking with a mix of rage and hurt. James didn't even look guilty. "It's just business, man. The world wants to know your story." I figured I'd help tell it. I clenched my fists. "You mean you figured you'd make money off of it?" He shrugged. "You've got plenty. What's the big deal?" The big deal was that I had trusted him. The big deal was that I had finally let someone in, only to have them stab me in the back just like my family had. I didn't say another word. I just walked away, from him, from the betrayal, from the idea that just because someone was there for you in the past meant they deserved a place in your future. That was the moment I realized something important. Success wasn't just about making money, getting famous, or proving people wrong. It was about choosing yourself. Choosing your peace over toxic people. Choosing your worth over someone else's validation. Choosing to walk away from anyone who didn't truly respect or care about you. And so I did. I focused on my future, my happiness, and the people who had proven they were really there for me. My past no longer controlled me. My family no longer defined me. I was no longer the person they used to overlook. I was someone they could never ignore again. Success came with a price. I had walked away from my toxic family. I had cut off a friend who betrayed me. My bank account was growing, my influence was undeniable. And yet, there were nights when I felt completely alone. It was ironic. When I had nothing, I longed for people to see me. Now that I had everything, I questioned whether anyone truly cared for me, or if they just wanted something from me. The doubt crept in slowly. Were my new friends around because they liked me, or because I was successful? Were the compliments real, or just flattery meant to stay in my good graces? The one thing I had always wanted, recognition, suddenly felt empty. One evening, as I scrolled through my messages, I saw something unexpected. Text from my dad. We should talk." I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. It had been months since I last spoke to him. After all this time, he was reaching out. I hesitated before replying. "Me, what do you want?" Minutes passed. "Dad, your mother isn't doing well. She's been asking about you." My chest tightened. I didn't know whether to believe him. Was she really sick, or was this just another attempt to pull me back in? For days, I wrestled with the decision. A part of me wanted to ignore it. They didn't care about me before. Why should I care now? But another part of me, one I hated to admit still existed, wondered if I would regret it if I never saw my mom again. In the end, I decided to go. Not for them, but for my own peace of mind. When I arrived at my parents' house, it was surreal. The last time I had walked through that door, I had left as a man proving a point. Now, I walked in as a man who had nothing left to prove. My mom looked frilier than before, but she was still the same woman who had ignored me for most of my life. She smiled weakly. "You look good." He nodded. "You don't." She let out a breathy laugh. "Fair enough." We sat in silence for a moment before she spoke again. "I saw your interview." Tensed. "And," she sighed, "you weren't wrong about how we treated you." "I wasn't expecting that." She continued. "I don't know why we did it. Maybe we assumed you'd never be anything special, so we didn't try. Maybe we were just selfish. But I do regret it." I swallowed hard. Was this real? Or was this just another manipulation? Then she reached into her drawer and pulled something out. It was the same $20 coupon from my birthday. I kept it, she admitted, eyes glassy. I don't know why. Maybe as a reminder of how little we gave you, and how much you did on your own. For the first time, I saw something in her eyes that had never been there before. Guilt that I didn't forgive my mother that day. But I also didn't walk away with anger in my heart. Instead, I realized something important. Closure doesn't always come in the form of an apology. Sometimes it comes from accepting that people can never undo the past, no matter how much they might regret it. I stood up, staring down at the coupon in my hand. You keep this, I said, sliding it back to her. She frowned. Why? I met her gaze. Because I don't need it anymore. I had already taken everything they gave me, even the pain, and turned it into something far more valuable than they had ever imagined. And that was worth more than any apology. Walking out of my parents' house for what could be the last time, I felt a strange sense of relief. I had spent years craving their approval, but now I didn't need it. Their regrets, their apologies, even if genuine, couldn't change the past. I had made it without them. But what now? For so long my goal had been proving them wrong. Now that I had done that, what was left? Success wasn't just about reaching the top. It was about staying there. With millions of followers and a growing brand, the expectations were higher than ever. Every video had to be bigger, every project had to be better. Barely slept. My creativity was burning out. I had money, fame, and respect, but I had no time for myself. One night, as I stared at my reflection in the mirror, I realized I had escaped my family's expectations. Only to become a prisoner to my own. I needed a break. For the first time in years, I took a step back from work. No filming, no meetings, no pressure. I traveled. I read books. I sat in silence without worrying about engagement metrics or trending topics. And somewhere in that stillness, I rediscovered what made me love creating in the first place. It wasn't about proving anything to anyone. It was about telling stories, making people laugh, sharing experiences. I had spent so much time running from my past that I forgot to enjoy my present point. One day, during my time off, I got a knock at my door. When I opened it, I was shocked. It was Emily, my younger sister, the same one who had laughed at my struggles, ignored my birthdays, and treated me like an afterthought. She looked nervous, holding something in her hands. "Can I come in?" she asked. Emily sat across from me, fidgeting with the object in her hands. When she finally spoke, her voice was quieter than I had ever heard it. "I was awful to you," she admitted. "I was selfish. And I'm not asking you to forgive me. But I need you to know that I see it now." I stayed silent, letting her continue. She placed something on the table. It was the $20 coupon. "I kept this after Mom passed it to me," she said, looking down. "It's embarrassing, really. A reminder of how blind we were." I exhaled slowly. "Why now?" She met my gaze. "Because I don't want to be like them. I don't want to pretend none of it happened. I want to do better." For a long time, I had assumed my family was incapable of change. But maybe, just maybe, some of them could. I didn't forgive her that day. But I listened. And that was a start. Emily sat across from me, waiting. For once, she wasn't rolling her eyes or pretending I didn't exist. She looked genuine, nervous, maybe even regretful. I stared at the $20 coupon she had placed on my table. The same one my parents had once given me as a careless afterthought. The same one that had fueled my determination to prove them all wrong. "So what now?" asked. Emily sighed. "I don't know. But I don't want us to be strangers anymore." For years I had resented her. She had been part of the problem, laughing at me, ignoring me, treating me as if I were worthless. But now, for the first time, I saw something in her I had never seen before. Growth. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I admitted. She nodded, looking down. "I get that. But I'm willing to see if things can be different." Her head snapped up, eyes wide. "Really?" Shrugged. "It doesn't mean we're suddenly best friends. But We can start somewhere. A small smile tugged at her lips. I'd like that. And just like that, for the first time in years, I felt like I had a sister again. Over the next few weeks, Emily and I talked more than we ever had growing up. She told me things I never knew. How she had always felt pressure to be the perfect daughter. How our parents constantly compared us. How she had convinced herself that looking down on me made her look better in their eyes. It wasn't an excuse, she admitted one night over dinner. I was just selfish. It was hard to process. All these years, I had assumed she was just naturally cruel. But now I was starting to see her as a product of the environment we grew up in, just like I had been. The difference was I had left. She hadn't. Not everyone was happy about our newfound connection. Ryan, my older brother, was still the same. Still arrogant. Still dismissive. Still acting like nothing had changed. One day he called me out of the blue. "So, Emily told me you two are playing happy siblings now," he scoffed. "Not that it's your business, but yeah," I replied. He let out a sarcastic laugh. "You do realize she's only coming to you because she has nothing left, right? Mom and Dad aren't around to spoil her anymore. She's just latching onto the only successful one in the family." His words hit a nerve. Because deep down I had wondered the same thing. Was Emily really changing? Or was she just reaching out because she had no other choice? But then I thought back to our conversations, to the way she opened up, the way she admitted her mistakes without making excuses. "No," I said firmly. "You're wrong." Ryan's voice turned cold. "Whatever. Just don't come crying to me when she turns on you." I hung up, shaking my head. Ryan would never change. But maybe Emily could as my personal life shifted. My career was about to take its biggest leap forward yet. A huge production company had reached out to me. They wanted to collaborate on a major project, a full-length documentary about my life and success. First, I hesitated. Did I really want to put my personal story out there? Did I want the world to see the struggles, the rejection, the pain? But then I realized, this wasn't just my story. It was a story about anyone who had ever been underestimated. And I wanted to tell it. Months later, the documentary was complete. The premiere night was surreal. Industry professionals, influencers, and supporters filled the theater. My name was on the big screen. My journey, the good, the bad, and the painful, was out for the world to see. As the credits rolled, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned to see Emily standing there. Her eyes were glassy. She had been crying. "That was incredible," she whispered. For the first time I could tell she wasn't just saying it. She truly meant it. And at that moment, I knew I had made the right choice in giving her a second chance. The days following the documentary's release were a whirlwind. Social media exploded. Messages flooded my inbox. Some from fans, some from strangers who saw themselves in my story. "Your journey inspired me to chase my dreams. I grew up in a family like yours. Thank you for sharing this." This made me cry. You proved everyone wrong. I had expected a reaction, but not like this. The film wasn't just about my success. It was about resilience, rejection, and proving yourself when no one else believes in you. And it hit harder than I ever imagined. One afternoon, while sifting through hundreds of notifications, I saw a message that stopped me cold. It was from Ryan. Ryan, who had dismissed me, mocked me, and acted like I would always be beneath him. "Ryan," I watched it. That was all he said. No apology. No follow-up. Just those 3 words. For a moment I debated ignoring it. He didn't deserve a response. But then I remembered Emily. How I had given her a chance to prove she had changed. So after a long pause I typed back. "Me and..." Minutes passed. "And Ryan." I didn't know it was that bad. A flicker of something, maybe guilt, crept into his words. But I wasn't ready to forgive him. Not yet. A week later, I got an unexpected call from my former boss, the one from my old soul-crushing office job. "Hey, I saw the documentary," he said awkwardly. Waited. "Look, I won't lie. Back then I didn't think you'd amount to much. But, turns out I was wrong." Smirk. "Yeah, I get that a lot." He chuckled nervously. So, listen, we're hosting a big business seminar next month. We'd love to have you as a guest speaker. You know, to inspire our employees. I nearly laughed out loud. The same company that once saw me as disposable now wanted me to inspire their employees. The irony was delicious. But instead of gloating, I simply said, I'll think about it. Because now I was the one with the power. A few weeks later I stood at the seminar, on stage under bright lights, looking down at an audience full of business professionals. My old boss sat in the front row, shifting uncomfortably. I took a deep breath. When I worked here, no one believed in me, I started. I was overlooked, underestimated, and treated like I didn't matter. The room was silent. But here's the thing about being underestimated. It either breaks you, or it fuels you. I let those words sink in before continuing. Every time someone doubted me, I worked harder. Every time someone dismissed me, I proved them wrong. And now? Well, let's just say I don't need a $20 coupon anymore. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Even my old boss managed a weak chuckle. That moment wasn't about revenge. It was about proving that I had won. That night I thought about everything that had led me to this point. The rejection, pain, the loneliness, the success, the recognition, the second chances. I could have let my family's mistreatment define me. But instead I had rewritten my own story. And as I sat in my luxury apartment, overlooking the city, I realized something. I wasn't just the kid they once ignored. I was living proof that being overlooked is not the same as being unworthy. And I would never let anyone make me feel invisible again. After the seminar, I expected things to slow down. I had proved my point. My story had been told. What else was left? But life had a funny way of keeping things interesting. One night, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it, until curiosity got the best of me. Hello. A familiar voice spoke on the other end. Hey, it's Dad. It had been months, maybe even a year, since I last spoke to him. The same man who once forgot my birthdays. The same man who never believed I'd make it. The same man who once handed me a $20 coupon as if that was all I was worth. And now, after everything, he was calling me. What do you want? Asked. Long pause. I want to see you. I wasn't sure why I agreed to meet him. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe a part of me still wanted closure. Maybe I just wanted to look him in the eye and see if he had changed. So, a few days later I found myself standing outside a quiet cafe waiting. When he finally arrived, I barely recognized him. He looked older, weaker, more tired than I had ever seen him. For the first time, he wasn't the man who towered over me with disapproval. He was just a man carrying the weight of his own mistakes. We sat in silence for a while. Then my father sighed. I watched the documentary. I said nothing. You probably don't care, but I didn't realize how badly we treated you. His voice was rough, almost as if saying the words physically hurt him. For so long I had dreamed of hearing those words. And yet, now that he was saying them, they didn't feel as satisfying as I imagined. Because words weren't enough. I don't need an apology, I finally said. I needed one years ago. No. I just don't care anymore. He flinched. I deserve that. I stared at him, waiting for him to make an excuse. Waiting for him to shift the blame. But he didn't. I wasn't a good father, he admitted. And I don't expect you to forgive me. But I wanted you to know, I see it now. For the first time in my life, my father actually saw me. I left that cafe without making any promises. I didn't forgive him that day. I wasn't sure if I ever could. But for the first time, I wasn't holding on to anger anymore. Because forgiveness isn't about letting others off the hook. It's about letting yourself move forward. And that's exactly what I did. After my meeting with my father, I felt different. Not happy. Not angry. I was free. For so long, my success had been fueled by the pain of being ignored, of being treated like I didn't matter. But now, I had nothing left to prove. And with that realization, I finally understood something. Success isn't just about proving people wrong. It's about proving yourself right. Over the next few months, life moved fast. My documentary hit millions of views worldwide. I launched my own media company, mentoring young creators who were once like me, overlooked but full of potential. Brands, celebrities, and investors all wanted to work with me. I had built an empire out of something my family once laughed at. And yet, none of it compared to the most unexpected moment of all. 1 year after that infamous $20 coupon birthday, I woke up to something I never expected. A knock on my door. When I opened it, Emily stood there. And behind her, Ryan. He looked uncomfortable, shifting on his feet. Hey. Emily gave me a nervous smile. We wanted to do something different this year. She handed me an envelope. I hesitated. If this is another coupon, I swear. She laughed. Just open it. Inside was a handwritten letter. Not a gift. Not money. Just words. Words that meant more than any amount of money ever could. We were wrong. You didn't just prove us wrong, you inspired us. We don't deserve another chance, but if you're willing to give us one, we want to try. I swallowed hard. Ryan looked away, clearing his throat. I was a jerk. I get it now. For the first time in my life, my family saw me, not as a failure, not as a joke, but as someone they respected. And that was worth more than any revenge. Forgiveness isn't easy. It's not about forgetting. It's about choosing to move forward, on your own terms. I didn't forget what they did. I didn't erase the years of neglect. But I also didn't let it define me anymore. So, as I looked at my siblings standing before me, waiting for my answer, smiled. Let's start over. And this time it wasn't about proving anything. It was about choosing the future over the past. One day someone asked me, if you could go back in time, would you change anything? And I thought about it. Would I change the rejection, the neglect, the years of feeling invisible? Well, because being overlooked wasn't my weakness. It was my superpower. It made me stronger. It made me unstoppable. And now, I wasn't just the kid who got a $20 coupon. I was living proof that sometimes, the people the world ignores become the ones who change it. And